Hey, I really hope this thing is recording. If not, I don't know. We'll just delete it. If it is, welcome um, to this. I, guys, I'll be honest. I don't know what I'm doing here. This is really, really new. I'm gonna try and send this out to the page here and see if anyone can confirm. Um, yeah, because if it is, I probably need to get some shit together and get like some of that content. Just on the off chance that this is, I know I'm speaking quietly. My daughter is literally like, directly above me. She's 2 years old. My son's asleep over there. But this is 5 Slurred minutes. I got really drunk last night and listened to a bunch of old music, Our Lady Peace, and recorded a podcast that was unintelligible to the point that it's not even funny to share. So, my apologies, but I figured I'd come back today and try to produce some content. I was trying to be really consistent with the articles. I had something posted last week. It got to leave on my fucking Mac, so it got disheartening a little bit. But I'm back here. Figured I would present that article in my form or in my video form. Sam, but and then I just kind of go. I'll just talk about it there, and then if there's anybody today, I'll answer questions and we'll be pro related, hopefully, and talk about the league. We're almost done with spring training here. We're coming up on our 8th season, I think, which is wild to me. And I just wanted to dedicate the time to talking about it. So, if anybody's on here, anybody's watching outside of Sam who just checked in, is probably going to bounce. I appreciate it. If not, I hope I can record this thing and post it up there, and then somebody will watch it eventually. Because one of my favorite things about this league was the content. One of the things that kept me staying probably since the start was when Comey used to do his bi-weekly radio shows. I loved it. I mean, it was something that was unmatched in anything I've ever done before. So I'd like to be part of bringing that back. John Hines. I hope your first name's John. My apologies, but Hines has done a great job of producing content on a really, really scheduled, regular basis with all of the team previews. And that inspired me to come back. And so we'll see how we can do with this kind of thing. Hopefully we can drag Jabs out of whatever hole he lives in out west now and get him to produce some content again. The Jabs cast was one of my favorite things we've ever had going for the league. But anyhow, if anyone's watching, let me get into the content I wanted to talk about with the Enning Volume 4. And that way I can fucking delete it and get into the Enning Volume 5 and 6 and kind of those kind of things. So anyone unfamiliar with the format of the Enning, it essentially goes something like this. We're going to talk about 3 positive things that we've noticed over the last couple of days. At this point, it's over like a week old, but it's still worth talking about. We're talking about 3 negative things we've noticed going forward as well. So to start, let's start with the 3 up. The first thing I wanted to talk about, and it's going to come maybe across as a little odd considering how negative I've been in my articles about the Pittsburgh Pirates to date, is the Pittsburgh Pirates corners, right? Not just the infield corners, but the outfield corners. Specifically, I want to talk about the corner outfielders today. I want to talk about Josh Bell and Michael Conforto. Josh E. Bell is one of the most popular players in the league today. He's a guy that hopefully, if you've ever followed the MLB Pro, you will know this fella's name. He had 38 home runs, drove 115 RBIs last year's, slash 291, 357, 523. The guy's a monster, right? I mean, that was his first real breakout season. He's a young cat, and he's a guy that we expect to see a lot of big things out of in the league this year. I don't know if you guys are now seeing my screen or not. If you are, I apologize. I wanted to look up how old Josh Bell is because he's 26. 26. I mean, the guy's a monster. And he's somebody that, as I look forward to the 2019 season, I see him being a legitimate MVP candidate. And that's something that's very impressive to me for a city like Pittsburgh that has nothing going for it outside of him. Now, granted, I say that. And I say that because Pittsburgh is one of the few teams, and we covered this a couple episodes ago, maybe a couple articles ago, it's never made the playoffs. They've barely had a winning season. They've had one winning season. That's my dog. in MLB Pro history, and they've never made the playoffs. And this year is not going to be the year they do it. As weak as the NL Central is, this is not the year for Pittsburgh. But I guess at least something interesting to watch if you're a Pittsburgh fan. Josh Bell and Michael Conforto are two young-ish by sports standards, mid-20s, talented corner outfielders, right? You look at Josh Bell, again, like I mentioned, he's a legitimate MVP contender. He will absolutely 100%, barring injury, be an all-star this year. But I think this is the year he's not alone from Pittsburgh. Michael Conforto is at 316 to date. Now, granted, this was a couple days ago. I suppose I could not stack of shit and look this up, and kind of find out what his batting average is now. But at the time last year, he was hitting 316. So I'm gonna look it up real quick. Hopefully, he played last night. Yeah, all right. So he's dropped a little bit. He's hitting 277 right now. But he has hit 4 home runs. He's driven in 8 RBIs. And he's played in a lot of games. I mean, that's not a bad. If you average that out over a full season, if he hits 280, 30 home runs, drives in 80 RBIs, you've got to be thrilled with that as a Pittsburgh fan. Thrilled for a team that's got almost nothing else going for it. As much as I love the Bucks and what they've got going on from a uniform perspective and a nickname perspective, there's just nothing there. From a talent perspective. So you have to love what they've got here. Now they've got some shitty defense on the infield. They've got some bad pitching. Now they've got a couple guys who are worth mentioning, but their outfield is really, really impressive. Couple that with the fact that Tank Jones, a league favorite, is probably slated to stay in center field this year, despite the fact he's better on the corners. But with Conforto out on one of the corners, and you've obviously got Josh Bell and the others, T. Jones, the 29-year-old, is going to be forced to kind of go into that middle area. They could have legitimately an all-star outfield, which begs the question, what does Pittsburgh do with these guys? Even with all these 3 guys, they could hit 340. Pittsburgh's not competing this year. St. Louis has been a massive disappointment the last couple of years, but they're too talented to continue into the playoffs the way they have. And the Reds were just a fluke, right? I mean, you look at them on paper, they're nothing special, but there's something about the way Scott has put that team together that they're a playoff team. If they're not decimated by injuries last year the way they were, they make the playoffs, and they still almost did. So, Pittsburgh's got no shot here. The Cubs are rising back up. Pittsburgh has to rebuild. And I think this is the year that you finally see the Pittsburgh management deal these 3 players. And I think you see what would be an all-star outfield for the Pittsburgh Pirates traded away together. Well, not literally together, but traded away in the same season, and Pittsburgh just ends up with a haul. The problem with that is, for any National League fans out to an American League team trying to compete, and the National League is set back even farther, and now we have a team that's got tons of prospects in the National League, but no real path forward. You've got another team like Arizona. Now, that's not to say they don't have a path forward. Arizona is stocked with prospects, and they absolutely have a path forward, but it's dangerous with prospects. It's tough to know where they're going to go. So, anyway, as a guy that loves parity, this league has been dominated by the American League. I've gotten a little off track here, but the point is that there's 3 real trade pieces here in Pittsburgh. As much as I would love to see the Bucks try to make a run, I don't think they're capable of it. I would love to see them deal these 3 pieces and get some real rebuilding stack here and keep themselves out of any playoff contention, drop to the bottom of the league, get some top picks here, and be able to rebuild and have the Bucks be real viable in the NL Central again. So that's one, right? I spent more time on that than I thought I would. I'm going to do a real quick check. Is anybody listening to this right now? If you are, let me know. If not, it's okay. I just fucking hope this saves. Doesn't look like it. Cool. Looks like I'm all alone. This is, guys, I gotta be honest. This is a real sad moment for me. I don't know why I'm doing this. I hope this saves. Anyhow, just real quick. Listen, let me know. Anyway, all right. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. The Pirates, right? They've got some interesting pieces, but again, I'm hoping they dump them. The second thing I wanted to talk about, and I need to make sure this is still relevant because it was the day I wrote this. And again, this has been this is almost a week old now, and spring training time, that's a long time. Ooh, and he's dropped off. So listen, the other thing I wanted to talk about was Dominic Brown. Dominic Brown has gotten plenty of coverage in MLB Pro for that ridiculous contract he signed in Boston a couple of years ago. The guy signed, Jesus Christ, I mean, he owned almost $30 million last year, and he's going to continue to earn that for a couple while posting a negative WAR. It was negative 2.3 last year, essentially just keeping Ronald Stanton's seat warm. You know, Ronald Stanton and Boston's future is bright, mind you. Brett's done a decent job in the last couple. Excuse me. Goodness. Last couple seasons, and picked up some real pieces for himself. Ronald Stanton being one of the more impressive ones, whose spot is now occupied by Dominic Brown, who's one of the highest paid. I think he is the highest player on the MLB Pro. He had a disaster of a regular season last year. I'm gonna pull his stuff up real quick, but I mean, I think he was borderline unplayable as a guy making $27 million. He literally hit 227 with a 310 OBP and slowed 367. That part's not terrible. It's a fucking 227. He shot 146 times, walked 69. I mean, the guy was bad. He was really, really bad. And so when you think about a guy like him wandering around with negative zone read in the outfield, he actually had to play a little bit of first base to get any kind of consistency. I mean, he's a drag. Zone read, that's not the word. Either way, he's bad. Right? He's very, very bad. And so going into this year, the question for Boston fans was, what's the future for Dominic Brown? Is he going to play? Will he be a guy that we rely on? Will he be a guy we even see? Or are we going to look at a $30 million hole in our lineup and just fucking let him go? Or put him on waivers, see if somebody claims him, try to trade him for a couple of pieces, see if somebody, like the Yankees. I mean, the Yankees may have bid on him. They've bid on a lot of players this offseason. So I looked at him and I watched him through the spring. And as of a week ago, I closed it. As of a week ago, he was having a very, very good spring. Right. At this point now, I think he's in 277. He's got no home runs. I mean, Dominic Brown was never a big power guy, but you've got to be a versatile player making $30 million a year. But right, 277. Right. He's earning 8 RBIs. He's playing decent defense. He seems to have turned his attitude around, whereas last year he was definitely bummed out and just sort of being a massive detriment to the entire team. This spring, he seems to have taken Stanton under his wing. He's talked to him a lot about the confines of Fenway Park. Fenway's outfield is one of the most unique, difficult places to play in baseball, and Dom Brown has been spending a lot of time with Ronald Stanton and some of the younger guys, teaching them how to play a ball off the monster, how to play a ball in center field when it gets into one of those little nooks and crannies, and how to watch yourself down the right field line when you come to that fucking foul line and there's no space there. So it's a very unique place to go. So when I wrote the article, he was hitting 308 with 7 RBIs. Over the last week, he's obviously dropped that a little bit. Only can drop in one more run, but he's still producing. And I think if you're Boston, while you don't expect to contribute this year, if you can get something like 277, fucking 70 RBIs and a couple home runs out of this guy playing positive defense, probably at first base, not in the outfield, or in presence, you'll take it all day long. Because Boston does not expect to compete this year or next year. And by the time Stanton's contract's up, there'll be a bunch of young guys coming through. So I think Boston's in a decent spot here. We've written a little bit about the Asian takeover that they're taking, and then the focus they seem to have on engaging with the Japanese and South Korean markets, trying to drive some more international interest in them, the way that we saw Seattle do a decade plus ago with Ichiro. I'm interested to see what this looks like. Yasuhiko Takeda. Ooh, I butchered that. is playing a lot of right field this spring, and Dom is probably going to take a back seat to Stanton and Takeda. But as long as he has a positive impact on the clubhouse and he can play a little first base and maybe a little spot then on the outfield, I think Dom Brown is a really big spot on this team. And for a guy that's not a bad dude, it's fun to see. I enjoyed this. I like watching Dominic Brown's resurgence, and I hope to God that he can continue it. Anyway, that's number 2. The third one, I titled it Foster the People, which is a really shitty joke, but I wanted to talk for a guy who has bounced around a lot. He was in the Braves organization, my personal favorite team, for a while. He was claimed on, I think he was a Rule 5 draft pick at one point. And then he got thrown onto waivers. His name's... Yeah, it's fine. His name's Ron Foster. And Ron Foster is now playing for the Cleveland Indians. So shout out to my guy, Aiden Dugmore, across the globe in New Zealand. But this is a guy that I'm really interested in watching this year. He's to date hitting .263, 5 home runs, driven 11 RBIs through spring training. You know, he's a guy who's got holes in his swing. He's going to strike out a lot. He is. He's just not a complete player, but he also is somebody who's been a really interesting prospect all the way through the minors to last year, until he's finally given a chance in the majors with Houston last year. He had 12 home runs over a smattering of at bats. Hang on a second, my wife's calling me. Hey, Daryl. Okay. Let me call you right back. Okay. The most professional thing I've ever done in my entire life. Anyhow, Ron Foster's having a good spring, and he's a guy that he's only 24 years old. He's bounced around a lot. He's been claimed on waivers. He's been a Rule 5 pick. He doesn't play spectacular defense, but he's serviceable enough out there, and he works hard. And for a guy like him, I'm happy to see him succeeding in a Cleveland Indians team that is desperate for personalities. Right? I mean, you look at the way Cleveland has gutted themselves, essentially. They have some interesting players. Now, the question becomes, where does Foster play? As talented as he is, as interesting as he is, Isaac Osicko is a guy in Cleveland that is going to be a mainstay. He's a talented guy. I mean, he's somebody that was in, it seems like years ago now, but in Miami, even up to last year, playing, and then was dealt to Cleveland in a deal that saw a couple guys, John Lamb being the main piece, head back to Miami. But Sicko is a guy that demands playing time. He's proven himself time and time again. The Italian-born player has been efficient, and he will demand playing time at first base. Now, he's not as good defensively as Foster is. He's got some of the same holes in his swing. He doesn't prioritize pop, but he's not going to strike out as much. So, how do they balance Sicko? But if you think about the fact that Sicko's 26, Ron Foster's 24, and the Indians have, the rest of their infield looking like Miguel Andujar, a young former top prospect who's never really figured it out, but it could be a season away from breaking out. Julio Torres, who's another young kid, but has great defense and strokes the ball really, really well to the gaps. You got like Stanley Mills, who played for the Yankees, again, only about 27 years old, but is a talented. They've got a bunch of guys right on the cusp of their prime that could be a force here. And the Indians, as much as they are the joke of the American League Central favorites, the Twins, like, could be a decent squad here. Now, the problem is they've got the Twins at the top of that division. The Royals, they've got new leadership here. But if the new GM, whose name escapes me at the moment, I apologize, can replicate any of what Rhett produced last year and get to that 80, 90 win plateau again, could again be another playoff contender. The Indians are in a rough spot, but I think if you look at the team that could get up to 70, 80 wins this year with a decent core in the middle, if they could throw some people in that outfield and get a guy like Rod Swift at the top of that rotation and a couple of other these young cats to come through, this could be a dangerous team in a couple of years, and I'm excited to see what this infield does. right? So before we go to three down, I think somebody did ask an actual question in the thing, and like one viewer still here, probably not actually watching, but Aiden did pop through. We had a question from down under, and that question became dark horse teams or any teams that could fall off this season. And if I'm being honest, I haven't done a lot of research on this particular topic to this point. I think at a team that hasn't made the playoffs in the last couple of years that could come through and be a real World Series contender, I think you got to look at the St. Louis Cardinals. I really do, because when you look up and down their lineup, that team is talented as anybody you could possibly imagine offensively in the National League. Now, that's not saying the same thing as the league, but it's still saying something. They've got some hitters. They've got guys that can play defense. They've got a good squad. And their pitching staff is nothing to laugh at either. So I think if you're looking at a dark horse team, meaning that team that has not made the playoffs over the last couple of years that could come through and be a real contender, I think St. Louis is your one in the National League. Now, if I want to look up and down, I think you have a shot or an argument to say that you could probably look at the Giants to come through and win the division. I think even Sam talked about this a little bit. The GM of the Dodgers, his reign could come to an end. I think the Giants could make it. I have been a believer in the Padres for a very long time now. They are struggling this spring. But I think the Padres could be a team that can come through and make a push at this thing from the National League perspective. You know, the Phillies are always somebody that they flirted with this a lot. You know, you'd be surprised with the amount of respect the Phillies get and the work that they do in this league. They don't make the playoffs. A lot of damage when they're there, but I think the Phillies have a decent enough team to make some noise. They're definitely not going to win the World Series, but they can make some noise here. I mean, there's a lot of teams up and down the National League. I think you can go ahead and eliminate a few. I think the Pirates are irrelevant this year. Sorry, bud. I think the Cubs are irrelevant this year. I think the Diamondbacks, as good as they're going to be, are probably irrelevant this year. But I think outside of those three teams, you've got a league full of people in the National League that can make the playoffs, and you've got some real contenders to push the American League further than they've been pushed before. I think the Braves have a real good shot at making the World Series again and pushing them further. I think if the Giants make the World Series, they have a decent chance to push the American League. And I think if the Rockies make the World Series, they have a really good chance of pushing them. Again, I think I'm the only person in the league that believes this, but the Padres, I believe, will be the best representative for the National League in the World Series. On the American League side, it's a little different, right? You've got a very top-heavy system in the American League. The Twins are by far the best team in the American League Central. The Angels are by far the best team in the Annual West. Now, the Mariners are very good. They're probably the best number 2 in the league. And I think if you go down that division, the Rangers are probably one of the best number 3s in the league, and the Astros are number 4s. And hell, the A's are a very good ball club. I think the A's are a sneaky good team this year. And you know what? If you want to talk about this, if they weren't in the American League West, I think the A's would be my favorite as a sneaky team to get into the playoffs. But I don't think they have a shot, simply because they're not going to beat the Angels, Mariners, and Rangers. I think you put the A's in any National League division, and really any other American League division. I think the A's make the playoffs this year, but I think they're screwed because they're stuck behind a couple people. I think the Indians are a decent candidate to win more games than they won last year by a pretty significant margin. I don't think they make the playoffs. I think the Rays are an interesting candidate. Maybe they can come back. And I think one of the more interesting candidates to watch this year would be the Yankees. And I realize I've named almost every team in the league at this point, but the Yankees have basically turned their entire roster over and thrown in Miguel Velasquez, a guy that has consistently proved to be a cancer to the locker room, to boot to a bunch of new guys. And that's a really, really interesting experience. Brett Parker has consistently proved that he knows what he's doing. He makes these trades that the league will come back and say, look, this is a crazy trade, but consistently his team will get better and better and better as he trades. So I'm really excited to see what happens in New York with him. You know, as far as disappointments, I mean, I'm done doubting the Orioles. I want to doubt them. I want to, because I don't understand what he does. But the Baltimore Orioles are a team that despite the fact that I watch what's happening out there and Andy just doing his thing day after day, continue to produce, and they continue to win, and they continue to outsmart the league. So I want to say, I really do, I want to say that the Orioles are a team that could drop off this year and be a fall-off candidate, but I can't go against that man because he's proved time and time again he knows what he's doing. I think maybe, I mean, as interesting as it might sound, this may be a hot take, I think the Angels might be the one that you're looking at. I realize I literally just said that they're the top of the American League West, the top of the American League, and they are 100%. But when I look up and down the Angels roster, I'm not blown away. I'm confused at how they do what they do. So I think the Angels are an interesting candidate to watch this year. Now, are they going to fall off and be irrelevant? No. But I think they're in for a fight. I think this might be the year the Mariners push back. And as much as I hate to say it, I think the Mariners may take them down this year. And it's a possibility that if things break right for the Angels, or excuse me, not the Angels, the Rangers, the A's, maybe the Angels slip. Maybe they slip to third. I mean, it's a wild world out there. You never know. I think if you're going to look at potential top candidates again, I do think that there's a possibility that the Dodgers fall down a little bit. I think there's a possibility the Brewers fall down a little bit. There's a couple of teams out there that and I didn't do a lot of research from this prior to it, and I'm just throwing out some bullshit. But those are some teams that, strike me as potential fall-off candidates. And we can get into that further if you guys really want to hear more about how or why or what teams that could possibly be disappointments. Those are the ones we want to talk about. Let's get back into kind of the 3 down thing. I really only have 2 to talk about. And the first one, again, it just has to be pointed out. And Justin Kaiser, I apologize, man. Seattle Mariners got blanked back-to-back last week. And I realize it's spring training. But it has to be talked about. And I wrote about the first one. And then the next day when I was supposed to post this article, they got blanked again. A little bit, and then the whole thing got deleted. But I want to talk about that first one. It was at the hands of the Houston Astros, and then they got blanked again the next day by the Baltimore Orioles. But Will Rainey and 4 Houston relievers combined to blank the Mariners lineup and hold them to 3 hits. The next day, I apologize, I don't know exactly how the situation went down. Same thing happened against the Orioles. But this is a really interesting thing to me. King Felix was on the mound for the Astros, or for the Mariners, excuse me. He did a great job. The guy continues to defy the Raptors, the father time, and inspire all of us that are well over 30 to continue to focus on what we do best, I guess. But manager Joe Madden came out after the game and said, literally word for word, these guys were not focused. I'm reading here. Some of the veterans tend to get bored midway through spring. But I was disappointed to see some of the younger guys in the spot following suit. And I think particularly, Madden's comments were directed at the likes of 2 people in particular, 2 guys that I'm looking at. It's Phillips Castillo and Roy McKenzie, who are both fighting for roster spots this spring. It's unlikely they're going to make it, but they had a shot. And I think they missed a chance here. Now, McKenzie is having a markedly better spring training than Castillo is. For his spot just before his last performance. And then he kind of shit the bed again. So, this is something that you've got to watch out for. Yes, in spring training with veteran teams, you're going to have these moments, whether that's not paying attention, where they're not hitting the ball the way they should, they're not focusing. But it's supposed to be the young guys in spring that carry you through these doldrums of the cold weather, and then the veterans carry you through the end of the season. And in Seattle, what I saw over the last 2 days, granted it was last year at this point, or last week at this point, but during those 2 days, was a lack of veteran leadership and a lack of moral integrity from the youngsters to step up and take over and show people who's boss and hey, you know what? I realize that you are some of the best players in this division. You're all-stars. You're millionaires. But I am hungry to be where you are. And I didn't see that out of the Seattle Mariners young players. And it's concerning to me. I don't give a shit because I hope the Mariners fall off. I was probably a little bit more impartial than I needed to. I really don't care. The Mariners can win all they want. I like to see change, and I like what the A's have done. I like what the Astros have done. I like what the Rangers have done. I want to see somebody different in the AL West. So that was too mean. I apologize, Kaiser. But I would like to see some change. I want to talk about, and it's going to be super, super brief at this point. It's Miguel Velasquez, and it's interesting to me that I'm pointing him out as a negative because the guy has had a spectacular spring. Nobody's ever doubted his talent with the bat. What they've doubted is him as an individual. He is now at 8 home runs and 15 RBIs through the spring. He's hitting 250, which has dropped a little bit since I wrote the article. But goddamn, dude, the guy's breaking, right? And he had a couple of home runs back-to-back games last week. He was hitting well over 300. And I wrote this article, and he was actually asked after this game. Literally, he hit a shot to center field. It was gone, and he just kept chirping, right? And so they were in the locker room after the game. the whole Yankees group. And there was Prince Fielder being interviewed over here to the left. And a couple lockers down, you have Miguel Velasquez. Now, Prince Fielder has been in the league a long, long time. He's struggled. He's fallen off a little bit. He still can hit, but he's not like a spring chicken, right? He struggles with the spring particularly. He's hitting 100 right now, literally 100, with 0 home runs and 3 RBIs. And they were talking to him about the game and the grind of spring and how do you get through it as a veteran. Miguel was over here talking his ear off about how great he is. So the topic ends up coming up about the home run that Miguel Velasquez hit. And he said, man, did you see that shot? And Prince said, yes, I saw the shot. And something to the effect of, you know what, the kid's got talent. By the way, he's 30. He's got talent. He's got the drive. He works hard. But he's just an asshole. Literally, word for word, he's an asshole. There's no need to talk. And that's literally what's happening. He hit this home run, and Velasquez started spouting off at this pitcher. There's no need to talk during spring training game. What Prince Fielder was saying, essentially, like, I wish this kid would shut the fuck up and just play baseball. Because he could be a World Series champion. He could be a Hall of Famer. The guy could be like beloved for his entire life. And as he's saying this, Miguel Velasquez is getting an interview down literally three lockers down, and he hears this. Clearly, you can see he stops talking and he starts listening. And he launches into this fucking like attack on Prince Fielder about how the old people need to step out of the way and let the kids come through. You know, the dinosaurs need to stop. They need to shut up and learn when to die. And it was an expletive-filled tirade against older players in the league, particularly against Prince Fielder. But god damn, dude, it was ugly. To the point where I don't want to recap a lot of it. And again, keep in mind that Miguel Velasquez is 30 years old. He's not a young player. And the guy just goes off. So why am I including a guy that hits 8 home runs and 15 RBIs to the halfway point of spring in this? The guys, he could very well end up with 13, 14 home runs through spring. It's because when he hits, he's almost more intolerable than when he doesn't. And this kind of attitude, this interaction we saw with him and Prince Fielder in the locker room after the game is unacceptable to me as a baseball fan. And if I'm the GM of the team, and I just paid this guy, I don't even remember what they paid him. What did the Yankees pay Miguel Velasquez? $20 million a season until 2024. I don't want this kind of bullshit going on while my youngsters are growing up. Right? I don't want this guy. And by the way, he's insignificant. If you think about this, he's a guy that everybody knows, but nobody gives a shit. He's insignificant across the league. I can't get into that. What's important to know is that he is hitting the ball incredibly well, and he will continue to hit the ball incredibly well in New York. I project him to hit something like 40 home runs if he lasts the entire season in New York. But what will he do to the climate? What will he do to the rest of these players? Can the clubhouse and a strong personality like Brett Parker maintain? And can they keep Miguel Velasquez in check? That's everything I got. I realize nobody's listening. I realize nobody's going to watch this. It was fun to get back on camera, back on the mic and do this. I'm hoping to continue to do this a little bit. I've had some offers from some other league members to do a round table situation where we can talk about a bunch of different things. I hope to get that going. Suggestions welcome, guys. I mean, if there's something you guys want to see, you want to talk about, you want to hear about the league, let me know, because I want to bring media content back. It's one of the things that makes this league special, and it's one of the things that's kept me here this long. So let me know what we can do. Let me know what you guys want to talk about, what you want to hear, and let's get this thing going back again. That would be the end.